Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of Fintech Meets Faith, the podcast where we explore the intersection of ethical finance, technology, and Islamic values. Today, I'm very thrilled to welcome a very special guest, Ahmad Jawa. Although we have worked in the past together, and he is a seasoned finance and technology professional with a remarkable journey from working with the United Nations to leading ethical DeFi projects and creating content for over 13,000 subscribers on YouTube. I hope I am quoting the number correctly. Ahmed is passionate about strategic growth, innovation, and using technology, especially blockchain and AI, for the real world impact. Ahmed, welcome to the show.
Pleasure. Jazakallah khair. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. How are you?
All good, Alhamdulillah. So let's talk about UN because that's something people will be more interested to know. Like, obviously, you have worked with the UN on landmine removal in Cambodia. That's what I've read from your LinkedIn. So that you have to confirm. So, how was that experience and how did it shape your ethical finance journey and how come you are doing impact driven work?
Okay. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Yeah, so when I was in university finishing up, I had the opportunity to represent Canada in international grounds in Cambodia for the United Nations. I was in multiple projects, but the one that got the most famous was the demining of Cambodia. Yeah, so that project was one that got me introduced and to the world of project development and deployment and consulting. And it was a very good project. I was able to experience people's lives change through the work that UN and its aids, the different countries that were aiding this project, was able to do. Like there were so many villages that were previously to this project were had thousands and thousands of mines in the ground from the Khmer Rouge genocide that had happened within the country. So yeah, and we met the villagers, and they were talking about giving us stories about how they just see a cow blow up, or they'll just see randomly one of their cattle or sheep just blow up, and because there's a landmine there. And now how because we were able to take out all the mines, they feel comfortable and confident that they can go farming in different areas and different locations and take advantage of those open lands. So Alhamdulillah, it was a pretty good project, and when I came back, I was rewarded my awards for it and whatnot. But yeah, Alhamdulillah.
So, how come you entered Islamic finance then? Because obviously you were dealing in something different with the UN. So, what brought you towards ethical technology, blockchain space?
Okay, so this is like four questions in one.
Yeah.
You're taking me back into a journey where I was 14, 15, 16 years old. But I'll try to shorten it. Islamic finance and ethical finance because when I was in high school, I got into trading stocks and stuff like that. And I was always into the concept of like how can I make more wealth, investment, and blah blah blah. So while trading, I realized when I was reading the financial statements of different stocks, that there's interest-bearing reward, earnings, interest-bearing. And somewhat when I was in, I think 19 or 18, I heard my mom talk about how interest is haram and there's issues with that and unethical, and so it just didn't add up to me. I'm trading and I know there's this happening. So then I discovered IOFI, and I discovered a few other systems of stock screening and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, well, we have a framework. Personally, I had some reservations from even the framework that existed because I didn't think it was strict enough. So then that's where I started my journey when I'll say when I was 19, 20, when I was in second year university in regards to Sharia compliancy and Islamic finance. And I got deeper and deeper into the concept of Sukuk and then I worked towards getting my certifications and some of these things. And alhamdulillah, from there it was just like a passion. And yeah, when I graduated from university, I was working for IBM, and at the same time, I started making YouTube content. And the reason why I started making YouTube content was genuinely because I was getting messages bombarded from all my friends. Ahmed, is this stock halal? Ahmed, is this stock halal? I'm like, guys, back then I think Zoya just started. I was like, guys, like there's a whole framework, just use it. But we're lazy. Everybody's lazy. So then I made the videos and to kind of talk a little bit about what's halal, what's haram, mortgages, halal, haram, crypto, and the crypto was just booming at that time, and I was investing heavily into crypto. So I wanted to learn myself. So when I was learning myself, started making videos about it. So that, continued on to what I am where I am now. And I don't know if you're gonna ask me more questions about like the current status of my journey. So I'm not gonna go into details of that, but that's for Islamic finance. Um, Converting from UN to these things, UN was, I think, just another, like it was another big job for me. It's a good big opportunity for me, which led me to understand where my career passions are, and that's where I discovered I enjoy consulting and deploying projects, like solving problems. I just enjoy the aspect of it. Here's a problem, solve it. What do we need to solve it? Okay, get these things, solve the problem. And so, alhamdulillah, I think that's where the journey of career went, and the passion was Islamic finance, and they kind of merged when I started working at Marhaba.
I think so. The major goal of UN is to solve the problems, and I think so. From there only, you got this thing. I won't ask you which stocks would you recommend, because then we'll have to showcase a disclaimer that it's on your discretion, it's on your risk profile, then only buy it. But definitely, you talked about something very important, which is the guidelines are not as strict as they should be.
Mhm.
Do you want to shed some light on that, if you
Yeah,
like
yeah.
to? Yeah.
No, no, yeah, for sure. So according to the IOF regulations and some of the other regulations too, they allow an X percentage of um, haram aligned income or haram aligned transactions. This could be riba and this could be other things. And then they justify with certain hadiths. Now, I became a student of, very small student, very small student of hadith after. But the whole thing is that those specific way that they structured that whole criteria, it didn't make sense completely to me. I'm like, if we're gonna go away from haram, why would we try to justify it by using some, you know, I don't want to say daif, or I don't want to say, those type of this, but like it's not a good way of solving it. Now, I am no one in front of the ulama at IOFI. When I say these things, I say very humbly. I say personally, I was a little bit more stricter than that. So I would, the 30% is just it's just a percentage, really, to be honest with you. So I kind of sat back and I said, look, I will invest in all the stocks that I believe are good stocks, and it's as less as possible. And whatever that less as possible is, so that could be 5%, 7%, 9%. And if you read statements, financial statements, you can do these calculations. It's not too complicated. So then I was like, okay, whichever ones are less as possible, I'll just note down that percentage and I'll just do income cleansing of it. But even this concept is not a strong concept. It's like, one of the big ulama had once said, this is a bad solution to a very bad problem, right? It's not a good solution. It's okay, it's a solution, but it's a bad solution for a horrible, horrible problem. So, khalas, I mean, that's where I'm at about it. I decided that I'm not gonna completely live up to the 30%. I'll just kind of go. The whole objective is go as low as possible, and then whatever that percentage is, you give it in income cleansing and a little bit more than that in income cleansing, which is sadqa jari and stuff like that.
How much low did you go?
Oh, I went to 1%. Okay.
Ooh,
Okay.
that's
So
tough.
how did I do it? I'll be honest with you. I do not recommend this to anyone. Everyone. I'm a risk lover. I enjoy risk. Okay. So I found penny stocks, which are, I won't say penny stocks, they're just above penny stocks, right? So it's not, there's the gutter concept isn't too high. These are like, at least million, 3 million, 5 million companies that are functioning and have been functioning for a few years. So they're not going to pump and dump. And then they're purely equity based, and there's many of them in America, especially in the mining industry, in the when solar was brand new, in the solar industry. Um, so a lot, and alhamdulillah, I mean, I did lose money, but I also gained quite a bit. It was very hectic when I was doing this specifically. Then I switched over to crypto, majority of my portfolio. And so very little stocks right now, but a lot more, crypto and stuff like that.
Do you allow me to ask about crypto also then?
Go for it.
Because that's also a slightly controversial topic these days,
I
and yeah, you
Go
know it
for
better.
it. Go for it. Ask me whatever you want to ask.
So, since you mentioned that you were very strict when it comes to Sharia guidelines and Sharia compliance, so what are your thoughts about crypto then? Because some say it's not
Mhm.
halal, some say it is halal if it is backed by a fixed asset or maybe a currency or maybe it's been regulated by the government. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple different lining of requirements for certain ulama to say it's compliant or not. So I don't know if you, I mean, but for the listeners, so I have my channel, Mashallah Money, which was previously known as Think Halal and Grow Rich. Over there, I kind of go over this topic of it being halal or not with multiple different perspective and ulama. So I called upon Dr. Fuk Habib, who was a colleague of mine in Marhaba and is a mentor of mine to this day, an ustad of, and a friend too, a very close friend. So we went over this topic in like as detail as possible. And I mean, you don't have to look at mine. You can look into there's multiple different ulama now who have YouTube channels who have talked about this in detail. So you can look into Mufti Fraz Adam, you can look at Mufti Bilal Umarji, you can look into the stuff that Dr. Fuk Habib has done. You can look into what I think was it the council that also screened Algorand and Ethereum, right? So there's some really big ulama that have already went into the core components of not just crypto, but the technicalities of crypto. We're talking, talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum. No, we're talking about even meme coins, pump and dump things. We're talking about staking. We're talking about mining. We're talking about consensus mechanisms. Like the very technical things have also already been screened and talked about. Here's one thing I'll say, and because I don't have a lot of issue with controversy. So one thing is sometimes certain ulama in certain countries are gonna stay quiet because the government has told them to stay quiet about Sharia compliancy of crypto or not. And I think whoever's listening, just read through the lines here, right? So, in my opinion, is it compliant? I'm no ulama, I'm not an alim. I'm a talib ilm, I'm studying and not a mufti. But I would say if you look at the work of what the ulama have done, who understand economics, finance, Sharia, and technology, they have said it is Sharia compliant, but not all of crypto. We have to be like very honest here. There's multiple different pillars of crypto, or you can say uh, block transactions or financial literacy within the blockchain world, and each one of them require scrutiny from Shari angle, and the ones that are permissible, and the ones that are not permissible are not permissible. If you want me to go into details of that, this conversation would be 3 hours.
Yes, that's true. So, okay. So, since you have cleared this point about crypto and stocks and how people should basically screen it, and not basically screen it, but they should obviously check and do their own compliance before investing. That's a very important point. We cannot rely on some other person saying something and just start investing. You should do
Yep.
your own compliance in the end.
Mhm.
So you were part of Marhaba DeFi. Can
Mhm.
you break down what DeFi is and how come it's ethical or Islamic? Because it's a new concept, honestly telling you. Even when I first heard it like few years back, I wanted to explore this. What is DeFi?
Yeah, so DeFi is decentralized finance. Now, there's a very long answer to this, how it is ethical and compliant or not compliant. There's a very quick answer, and I'm going to stick to the quick answer. So, in essence, decentralized finance stands for breaking down the barriers of government control, bank control, and external controls towards the financial markets and the financial systems. And in essence, it kind of opens up the game that you take control over your finance and you also own the pure essence of your finance. Now, I'll give you one example with what happened in 2008, what happened in Greek. sorry, Greece. You know, when the crash had happened in Greece and the economy went down, the government had debt. The government pulled out of people's bank accounts, right? And this has happened multiple times. This wasn't something new. This has happened again and again and again, right? So purely, people did not own their money, because if somebody else could take access to what you own, you don't own it. And so that kind of sparked up the whole conversation about, do we truly own and control the assets that we have in the hands of the banking system and the government? And so this is where the whole evolution of, I mean, it was after the 2008 market, and that's where Bitcoin came, because of the whole conversation of how is money being managed, right? When the crash happened, the governments decided to bail out the big banks. The government decided to put the money and allocation towards X, but not Y, and people believe it sure went to Y, and that caused, the development of encrypted financial systems of crypto and Bitcoin and things like that. So that that concept that you own your complete wealth and all that stuff is as purely Islamic as it could be. If you really think about it, just like when you think about the just the way that's been put together, that's exactly what Tijara and Islamic finance stands for. Is that let people and let society flourish on the basis of that of their own wealth, and that they manage their own wealth, and there's no market manipulation, market controls, and things like this. If there is market control, that's under very strict systems, and there's very small moments that has happened. um, so that's one angle of it. Then the other side of this is that you have to look at the fiat system of the globe. Every country is following a system that is, in essence, non-Sharia compliant, right? So how does DeFi kind of solve that problem? DeFi pretty much comes in and says, look, it's a system that is managed by utility, and a system that has some backing of the currency. It's not like the fiat system right now. Right now, the state banks can print as much as they want, they can do whatever they want, and it's no more backed by gold. So if it was backed by gold, we had some conversations about if it's Sharia compliant or not. But right now, it's not backed by anything. It's technically what it's backed by is like power controlled, and I said so, so I said so, and very little to do with actual. I won't say little, but I'll say like somewhat to do with the economics of the world. And it's that's why we have such big problems with inflation and all these things that are happening globally. Like, people are losing their wealth just by putting money in the bank. Like they're just sitting around and it's losing wealth on a daily basis. So that's where, when you come back to the concept of DeFi, you're saying, okay, we have a financial system that's backed by some utility, that's backed by some system, and it cannot be corrupted by anybody putting their hands in there and manipulating it. So, it runs naturally with basic economics. And if you think about it truly, that's as Sharia compliant as you could get, right? So yeah, that's a little bit about DeFi.
Yeah, true. So I think so. That's a very important point you mentioned about DeFi, and definitely we are losing money by keeping it in our banks. That's not the right way of making money out of it. Although we do say that money should not breed money. That's a point mentioned in Islam. But obviously, you can put the money in the right products and obviously make money out of it. So,
Mhm.
since you were the CMO of this platform, did you face any challenges, especially when building this system? Because, it's not, when we also entered Islamic fintech, it was not that easy to convince the people. It was not
Mhm.
that easy to tell them, okay, this is what it is. It's very difficult to make them understand.
Yeah. So this is actually this was my life for the last 2 years. This is, I think, a part somewhere in my heart where I have some sensitivity towards, because when we launched and we were talking about how we're the first, and we're focusing on Sharia compliancy, and how every Muslim who's trying to get into crypto or thinking about crypto should think about halal and haram income. Everyone, regardless if you're Muslim too, I would say even people who are just out there, they should think about ethical finance. And under the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, uh, Islamic finance or ethical finance is part of one of the goals. So then, you know what? the whole world agrees ethical finance is very, very important. But you'll be shook to know not a lot of people care. Not a lot of people care. People care about, let me just make money. And if it's ethical and if it's halal, it's a cherry on the cake, you know? It's an extra bit that makes us happy. But what's more important to them is not necessarily halal. What's more important to them is if it makes me money. Okay, so when we were launching, we first our first struggles or hurdles were in regards to raising funds, even though the product and the story and the branding was on par. But whenever we would meet investors and VCs, not all of them, but many of them, they had a hard time accepting, and even Muslim investors and VCs. I'm kind of talking about things where I've never talked about these things in public, by the way. So even Muslim big VCs or investors had an issue. They're like, why is it Sharia compliant? And we're like, because our objective is to focus on Sharia compliancy because there's no product out there for the Muslims. That's making easy for the Muslims. And we went through that hurdle first. Then after that, it was once the product was developed, it was difficult to bring on users and educate them. Look, they just want what makes them money first, and then we're kind of teaching them. Look, yes, there's some meme coins, or yes, there's some haram investments within the crypto sphere that can make you a lot of money. But unfortunately, it's haram. So we're not working with them. But they'll be like, well, we want to make money and this. So that's the second element of it, right? And since I was, doing the YouTube and I was doing the whole thing, throughout this journey, I realized this is a tough and it's a struggle, but it's an important struggle, and we need to do this because we need to get our youth and our ummah back into the mindset of halal income, halal systems, because not only is it better for your akhirah, but it's also better for your own dunya. You're gonna potentially end up making healthier, cleaner income, which is going to be good for your family. At the ending of the day, what's the point of income? What's the point of wealth? It's to give you a better lifestyle so you can do better with it. But if that money that's coming in, well, let's say you make millions of dollars, but it's not halal, it's not bringing you a better life. It's taking away from barakah. So one, the struggle was because you talk about struggles, right? So one, the struggle was the initially the investors and the VCs, and we were getting investments from like even non-Muslims were happy to invest in us because they understood the value of ethical finance and Islamic finance. But first, we had the struggle with VCs and investors. Then it was the struggle of convincing Muslims, and then third was to maintaining that retention of Muslims after they weren't able to invest in some meme coins that were doing 5x, 6x. And we're trying to explain to them, well, this specific meme coin has zero utility, has actually promoting haram, and we cannot list it and we cannot work with this on it. And so then the whole education concept was the second issue. But inherently, there's a bigger issue too, is that I'm seeing that the ummah at large, I would say 7 to 8% of the Muslims in the West, and even in the Muslim nations, I'm happy to say this, not the Muslim nations even isn't even that high, but in the non-Muslim nations, 7 to 8% actually genuinely care about making halal investments and things like that. And I'd say in the Muslim nations, maybe 40 to 30%. Don't quote me on this, but this has been my experience about after running a business, running a YouTube channel, meeting hundreds and hundreds of people across multiple different Muslim countries, because I traveled quite a bit in the last 4 years, um, that actually genuinely care about halal. And that's why, I mean, I can quote you references from the Canadian market in regards to mortgages. Why is it that 60 to 80% of Muslims in Canada have mortgages? Like, let's talk about it seriously, straight up. But yeah, so these struggles exist when it comes to launching an Islamic finance project or company. But I think this is where Allah gives barakah to the ones that stick through, that keep running. And once you keep running and you keep sticking through, Allah will bring enough, interested users, clients, customers to you that you can keep running and you can bring a good change to the world. And I mean, I can reference how big look at Wahid has gotten, how big IFG has gotten, how big Practical Islamic Finance has gotten, PIF, his portfolio. And there's some few of the Muslim guys out there that are making some really good products. and projects out there that I mean, Mabrook. I remember you guys when I was working with you guys, initial partnership a long time ago, and now I've just talking to your CEO Fahad, and seeing mashallah, how he's growing. The project is growing. So you keep struggling and you leave it in the hands of Allah, and things get better.
Definitely, and I do second to your point wherein convincing to the VCs was the most difficult part, and I totally understand that because it's something new in the market. We have been relying on conventional systems, and when we bring up something like calling it Islamic or ethical or whatever name you take it, it's very difficult to convince them because obviously there is no interest rate. There's no additional income which is coming up. Money is not breeding money, so I do understand that, and definitely look at other Islamic fintechs, and there is, and even I was very impressed by the current generation because these guys are more interested in making sure that the money is halal. That's something very good which is happening around the globe, and
Alhamdulillah.
I've seen a lot of attraction, especially from the countries like South Asia, Middle East, West is like they are focused on this, and they know like how to make sure that their money stays halal. Like why there's an example which is a US based company. Obviously they have operations in the UK and they're doing mashallah very good.
Mhm.
So yes, definitely.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
So okay, you talked about your YouTube channel,
Mhm.
and we would love to hear about that YouTube channel and basically what inspired you to start creating content, that too in front of the camera, because people shy off when coming on in front of the camera and they avoid talking. So tell us about your journey as a YouTube entrepreneur.
Before I start YouTube, talking about YouTube, I think I'm gonna put a point here in regards to the last question and point. I've been saying this for the last 3 years on my YouTube channel multiple times in regards to the Muslims who are in the West, right? I'm from there, so is that guys, be very cognizant of not just where your money is coming in from, but also where it's going. I've been talking about how a lot to do with the transactions in non-Muslim lands are actually going against the ummah at large. And I can go into this point if you want to. It's a very controversial point, but it's a very long point. It's a really long conversation. So I just wanted to mention that in there because you said the Muslims of the West care, but being a Western Muslim, I'm gonna have to very respectfully a little bit disagree with you. They care as long as they know. But you know what the thing is? The Western Muslims, they're genuine. I'll explain to you what I mean by they're genuine. If they true, they have a concept of being raised with the being honest to yourself. So if they're honest to themselves, they know if this is haram. They will somewhat the ones who are practicing Muslims, which I also then would say is only 10% of the Muslims of the West, who are truly trying to practice Muslim, who are truly trying to practice Islam. Um, so who genuinely care are gonna go out of their way to try to quit a job to get a halal job, try to do everything in place, and even if bank because you want to earn halal, like it's not a big issue. We're non-Muslim lands, blah blah blah, but they'll still do it. So there's that 10%. But I want to tell that even 10% plus the 90 other percent is not only care about how where your money is coming in from, but be very careful also where your taxes are going, where your money is going, your transactions are going, what your banks are doing. So these are very important things, and this is a very long conversation in regards to not only the barakah of incoming, but the barakah of also outgoing. So anyway, we can go into that after. Now going to the YouTube question. um, so when I was in university, last year, as I told you, the last 2 years, I really got into the concept of Islamic finance. I really started looking into, what is Sharia compliance, what is IOFI, and while doing that, I was also very good at pitching and competitions and speaking. So I was actually invited to go and pitch and compete for my school for in different in the competitions and things like this. So Alhamdulillah, because of that, I knew that I don't have a fear of the camera or speak. I just didn't want to, seem like I'm arrogant or anything. That's why I didn't want to make YouTube initially, but then I was convinced by my friends saying, look, in a school of maybe 30, 40,000 people, everybody would be coming to me and two, three other guys who knew Islamic finance a little bit, very little, right? And everybody's doing stock trading, everybody's getting to the stocks and crypto and blah, blah, blah. And nobody knows about Islamic finance. And then there was me and a few other friends who we would always be pushing, hey, is there stocks halal? Is this halal? And they're like, what do you mean by halal and haram in stocks? Stocks are stocks. It's equity. Equity, there's no wrong with equity. I'm like, it's not the issue with equity. It's the issue of what your business is doing that you've invested in. It's also if the income and the financial statements are halal. So after being bombarded with hundreds of messages on WhatsApp from my friends, is this stock halal? Is this stock halal? I kind of gave up. I was like, I've had enough. They were like, is mortgages halal? Okay, why is mortgages not halal? Okay, what type of mortgages are halal? Like all the Islamic finance questions that were coming to me, I said, you know what? Let me just make videos. And genuinely, and I don't. It's gonna sound very funny. Once I made those videos, every time I would get a message, I would just reply with the link to my YouTube channel. I'd be like, here, go search it up yourself. I was like, go search it up. Or I used to give at that time, IFG was just starting, and at that time, Practical Islamic Finance was, the bigger boy, the bigger page. So I'll just link these three links, and I'll be like, figure it out, because I don't have time to reply. And because I was just starting at IBM, I was a consultant, and consulting requires you to work 60 hours a week, and so I was working on weekends too sometimes. So plus I had the YouTube videos I was making, plus I had another side thing that I was working on. And so I was like, I don't have time to reply to all your messages. With all due respect, brothers, here is the link. Go figure it out. And so alhamdulillah, that's why I started the YouTube channel. And then it kind of grew into it started growing, um and then it became a part of my passion to share, all the little few things that I know. I made a few mistakes, made some content that maybe wasn't the most accurate, and I guess that's what you learn. If I didn't start it, and if I didn't start throwing out there, I would have got nothing out there. So yeah, so just made content, started throwing out there, and then recently I stopped um about 8 months ago because I was like, I'm not adding value because I'm not doing this like majority of the other people out there on YouTube for money. I was just doing it for fun. My channel is monetized, but I did not turn on. I told my team to turn off all concepts of monetization. I don't know if they did or not, but I told them turn off the monetization because there's a fatwa that came up. Blah 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 blah. It doesn't matter. So I'm not doing it for money. So I was just like, I'm not adding value to myself or to anybody else. So I stopped making videos. But now, alhamdulillah, recently I got the motivation. There's some new topics, some very juicy topics from Islamic finance and tijara in the ummah that I think should be talked about. So I'm inshallah going to start redeveloping content and pushing it out very soon. So some exciting things are going to be coming out.
Inshallah, we are looking forward to that. Any tips and tips for people who are starting YouTube channels or maybe Instagram channels? Any
Uh,
tips?
any tips? Oh man, I look. I'm when it comes to depends what the channel is, what the objective is, what you want to do.
If it's
Look,
all about Islamic finance.
if it's all about Islamic finance, this is what I would recommend. Read about things that no one's talking about and which are very important. The reason why I think my channel did well was because no one was really talking about crypto and Sharia compliance with crypto and consensus mechanisms back then when it all started. Because I think I was one of the first few guys that talked about is staking halal or haram, is this thing halal or haram, or is that thing halal? And I wasn't quoting myself. I was just literally taking the fatwa of an ulama that was a respected ulama, and I was just reading it out and then explaining it from a practical element, then implementing it on the video from a practical element. So what would I recommend or advise people? Look, I don't think I want to do Islamic finance if it's your passion. If you truly want to do Islamic finance, or if you really believe in Islamic finance and that's your passion, do it and don't have this nia that I want numbers or I want to grow and I want thing. Trust me, this poison will come in on itself. When you start seeing numbers, you're like, oh wow, okay, I'm doing this for numbers. I'm doing this for numbers. Keep it genuine. Keep it because you enjoy doing it, and do it in a way where you also protect yourself in regards to if you're not an ulama, remember everything that comes out of your mouth could become held accountable on the day of judgment. So make sure if you're not an ulama, you are quoting ulama and respectable ulama in their field, and show through that whole journey of whatever that video is, that here is what the topic is, here what the ulama have said, but then show how you actually can benefit yourself and the ummah through it. Everybody, and I'm going to be very blunt here, is selfish, and everybody wants to know how they can make money. If you can show them how they can make money through XYZ in Islamic finance, they're going to watch. It's simple as that. So I think that would be my advice. And then also, then there's some technical advice, which I don't know if you want me to go get into, about like audio, getting the right mics, lighting, pausing, editing, intro, exit. I don't know if you want me to get into all those things. But yeah, I mean, dude, I think that would be my advice. And just one last thing, try your best. And I mean, I recommend this, and I advise myself this, and I might went around the gray area sometimes for myself. But I recommend this to myself before I recommend to anybody else, is that try your best to not do anything that might be not halal. Because yes, XYZ person in Islamic finance is doing it. And yes, there's XYZ music on someone's channel, or yes, there's this on channel, and that's helping them grow. But listen, none of these numbers, none of these metrics, none of this money is going to benefit you if Allah is not happy with you on the day of judgment. So make this a barakah and a waqf for yourself rather than less, and rather than something that becomes an issue for you when you're standing in front of Allah and you're just like, oh, I should not have done this because that extra 5,000 subscribers or extra $5,000 is now harming me, not benefiting me. So I think that would be my advice. A little shari advice, a little hidayah, a little bit about making YouTube videos, and a little bit about what topics they should pick.
That's actually a very good advice because we should not be posting anything without researching about it. And plus, this is Islamic finance. So, definitely, if you're not well versed about the things, you should not post about it because, in the end, you will be held responsible.
Yes.
That's very true. So, now let's do a small rapid fire with you, wherein I'll just ask few things and just to make it more interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to answer those in either one word or you can answer the way you want.
Okay, let's try my best.
Favorite
Bismillah.
Islamic scholar?
Oh my God. Oh, can I go past into in the past?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Um, I mean, I respect the four imams, but I'm gonna have to say Umar Radha Tanho, our Sahaba.
One underrated book that changed your perspective.
One underrated book that changed my perspective. I think the autobiography of uh, of Umar Radha Tanho, because everybody reads the Sirat al-Nabi, but nobody really reads the biography of the Sahabas.
That's very
I'm
true.
reading it right now, so it's amazing. Allah Mubarak. Or the book, the autobiography of Khalid bin Walid. Very nice.
Okay. Crypto, AI, or real estate? Which one excites you the most?
Oof. Um, I think right now crypto AI.
One dua you always go back to whenever you're stressed.
One dua that I always go back to. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel.
One of your favorite duas.
I think uh I think for now this would be it. Yeah.
Okay. So this was all about rapid fire, a quick one. And in the end, I would like to ask you, since you mentioned that you belong to Canada, how do you see the Canadian Islamic fintech space?
Fintech space. I think there's a few guys out there that are doing some good work, and I'll even mention you guys are there. Manzil is there. I'm so sorry if I'm missing out on some of my friends out there. But yeah, these guys are doing good stuff. You guys are doing good stuff. Um, it's still really behind, with all due respect, and I think that's not the fault of like the people there, but I think it's also the systems and the structures there, and also the demand, right? I know, like, I know some people in the Islamic finance world that had to do two different ventures or three different ventures because the demand isn't so big. The demand is only there for mortgages, and I'm being very honest with, because I know the mortgage market in Canada, and I know, I've had some conversations with Munzil, the founders of Munzil. The mortgage market is there, But when it comes to big fintech and the other stuff, it's not that big, like because the demand is low, and that, and I mean it when I say this, and a lot of people don't understand this, is that I think for the next generation we need to not work on just giving them solutions, but I think we need to work on motivating them to come back to the concept of barakah and halal income. One thing I'll say, look at what's happening globally to the ummah. So if we want to prevent this to continue, we need to come back to fight for halal and barakah. We're not. We're looking at ease and what is the fastest and the easiest way for us to enjoy the luxuries of this dunya. And then many times, and I think majority of the times, may Allah forgive me if I'm making a mistake here, but I think majority of the times in the West especially, it just seems like they don't care. They rather go for things that are what's easier and sukoon. Because look, and but I understand it's not easy to see to see everybody around you do so well, but because you're quitting jobs or you're not trying to work with XYZ that make a lot of money, like I'll give you one simple example. You work in consulting or big banks, you make good money. You make really good money. You work with try your best to make halal income, in 100% halal income. I'm not talking about guys who are like, oh, I just work for the IT department for a haram company. No, that's still, if you ask majority of the ulama from Medina University, or like some of the, okay, let me take that back. I won't say all of Medina University, but I know some, they will say that's haram. So someone who's trying to truly become halal, they would be like going through struggles. But the issue is that, but one thing very important, I talked about this in one of my videos, is that the person who's making $2,000 in halal income has so much barakah in his life and happiness, versus the guy who's making $10,000 working for, somewhere in Bay Street, which is Toronto's Wall Street, and making haram income. So I think for the next generation, what we need to do to bring that demand is to teach our kids that Allah is the one to give and Allah suffice for all your needs. So truly do what is going to make him happy, and he will make sure that you're happy. And so look for barakah. You don't have to look for shortcuts in life, because yes, you might make 10, 20, $30,000 a month in this dunya, but when it comes to when you're standing in front of Allah, that's not going to benefit any one of you guys. Look for barakah, because that's going to bring your family back. It's going to bring your happiness back. It's going to bring take away depression from your life. It's going to bring your family situation better. There's so many sons that don't respect their father. So many daughters that don't respect their father. This is the West, honestly, to you. So that's because the father is bringing haram income to the house. It's also because they're spending money on haram. They're not thinking about barakah. So why will there be barakah? So we need to motivate the next generation to come back to barakah. And I said this to myself before I said to anybody. To be honest, I'm not giving free khutbah or halakah here. I'm trying to give this to myself. So this is what I would say in regards to the fintech market of the West or Canada. We need to motivate our youth to come back to the concept of halal income and halal earnings and spending, and then the fintech market of the West will flourish, because there'll be a demand. In any economics or any economist will tell you, if there is demand, there will be supply. Simple. Demand pushes the market anywhere. If there's enough demand for anything, it will exist. So, because I love economics, so I kind of had to kind of quote economics here. So, if there's enough demand from the next generation of the Muslims in the West, then the fintech of the West will do really well. It will flourish like Wahid. By the way, Wahid, the amount of Muslims that exist in the West and the amount of money that the Muslims have in the West, Wahid should be 10 times bigger than it already is. So this is what I'm trying to say. Wahid is big, but Wahid should be 10 times bigger. So should be Zoya, so should have been Marhaba, so should be Manzil, and so should be like Mabrook. But the situation is that people don't care as much. And that's what we need to do, is motivate our youth to come back to halal.
Definitely, definitely. We need to make these startups or Islamic fintechs bigger than what they are right now, because still people are not that much into these.
Mhm.
So, what's next for you? Basically, you mentioned about something new coming up on YouTube. Any exciting projects? What's next?
Yeah, so there's a few things that are coming up. I don't think I can share much right now, because I think I've done the mistake in the past of sharing what I'm doing before it was done, and I didn't complete it. So right now, in life, there's three things, four things that I'm working on, inshallah, by the will of Allah. If Allah wills, it'll come out soon. If not, then I will continue working on it and it'll come out later. But so there's some exciting things. But yeah, YouTube for sure. I have four new scripts for here. I'll mention one. I'll mention the next few videos. So I've actually found an ulama's perspective on the four fatwas that are used in the West in regards to mortgages and saying mortgages are allowed. They don't say those, whether the fatwas don't completely say that the mortgages are halal. They said they're allowed in certain conditions. But the issue is that majority of the Muslims in the West have taken these four fatwas and they've implemented it within their lives. And they started developing, a lot of property and, blah. They got really into the messiness of riba. And so I found an ulama that did a compare contrast analysis of these four fatwas, and he's kind of very respectfully has proven why these four fatwas need to be revoked. So I'm gonna make four videos for each one of those fatwas. One of them is from Mufti, from Tahir Qadri from the South Asian market. There's one from the Arab Council of America, and whatever, all the four of them. So those few videos are something I'm working on right now, and there's also this motivation I have now that which I've talked about here, is that we need to motivate Muslims to come towards a halal lifestyle and income and tijara, and motivate Muslims to come towards tijara in general. So I'm going to focus on building more content around that and showing Muslims how they can live a happy, healthy, uh, successful, rich life with halal income. So there's some content in regards to that coming too.
I know we should not be disclosing a lot of things, and that there are a lot of constraints in that. If we disclose too much, nazar is also there, and things don't work out the way we plan it,
Yes.
because it's clearly been mentioned: man proposes, God disposes. That's what happens.
That's been the story of my life for a few things, let's just say.
It's
Alhamdulillah.
been it's been a
Alhamdulillah.
story of my life all throughout.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, because it's a
Yeah,
blessing of Allah.
alhamdulillah.
Allah's protecting us from something that we don't know.
Definitely, alhamdulillah. So I believe that's it from my side. It's been a pleasure talking to you today, and your work truly reflects how purpose driven innovation can reshape the world better. And it was really nice knowing a lot of things which I didn't know while working for you for a very short span of time. And may Allah put barakah in your journey and in the projects which you are working on. And
Ameen.
to all our listeners, thanks for tuning in for this new episode of FinTech Meets Faith. Don't forget to follow, share, and stay connected. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.